Welcome. You are looking live from St. Petersburg to Jacksonville, Florida, from Pinellas to Duval. Yes, I've got my Sunday teal on for good reason. Plenty of family and friends back in Duval. Jaguars home opener again September 7th. Home opener September 7th against the Panthers, so I'm looking for a great start to the season. But we're here, two meteorologists that love sports, we love weather, and we are updating the latest on the National Hurricane Center advisories that have been coming in with historic Hurricane Erin. And let's get this party started. And we can say, yeah, we can get the party started because it's still expected to curve to the north and northeast. In fact, I'm going to head over to the weather wall, Troy, give a little, set the table here for a little Sunday brunch here and a special live update here at 11 o'clock on 11:01. So this just came in from the National Hurricane Center. So I'm literally looking at this for the first time, like you at home. And the one thing that I notice here is that pressure is a little higher than we talked about yesterday. You remember yesterday that pressure down under 920 millibars, so 946 millibars. And sure enough, you know, the lower the pressure, the stronger the storm, higher the pressure, usually not as strong. But it's a formidable storm. We're still talking Cat 3 winds, Category 3 with 125 mile per hour sustained winds. The best news of all, instead of that west movement we saw yesterday when Robert and I were showing you, I said, we're waiting. Come on, baby. Turn, baby, turn. Well, we're seeing more of a west-northwest movement at 13 and right now 200 miles north-northwest of San Juan, Puerto Rico. So everything's still on track as far as where this is heading. And you can see this big ball of convection. Okay, central dense overcast here. The good news is the core of the system is still staying just to the north of the islands, okay? And we're expecting this core to not have any direct land impacts at this point. Bad news is, yeah, there's a lot of rain we've been tracking on radar for our friends in San Juan, Puerto Rico to St. Thomas and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. You see the latest track here, just updating here. So we've got the 11 a.m. Don't see any surprises, still Cat 3, and we're saying it's reorganizing a little bit today, so don't be surprised it could go back to a Cat 4, so no surprise there. 145 mile per hour winds as we head toward the wee hours of tomorrow morning, and then as we go through the week, still major Category 3. I mean, we're talking all the way through at least Wednesday, it looks like, but the big thing is that turn it's taking as we head into next week. Monday, starting to turn a little more north, and then northeast as we head into Wednesday. And the original call staying at least 700 miles to the east of Jacksonville Beach still looks like it's on track, and also splitting between Bermuda and the United States. So the little island nation's right at the edge, a little tippy of the box right there. So good news. So as we look at the tropical cone history, we've been giving kudos to the National Hurricane Center as far as the latest. It's been pretty accurate. It's been spot on for the most part here. So keeping everybody safe, informed, prepared, and connected continues here as we go through today. Not looking for any surprises, and we've got great consensus in all the models. So another close look if you're just joining us live at 11:03 from St. Pete to Jacksonville. We are talking about good news. Erin is showing signs that, yes, everything's on track, taking that north turn tomorrow as we go into the early part of the week, and then eventually to the northeast and away from the United States and between the U.S. and Bermuda. So as we zoom in, you see the blue boxes here with the tropical storm warnings. That's the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Turks and Caicos. The Bahamas in the yellow. There's your tropical storm watches. Okay, but again, it looks like the core of the system staying to the north and northeast of the islands. And then as we head through tomorrow, there it is. Really, I think this week it'll peak out first thing on our Monday morning with winds sustained at about 145 miles per hour. And then there's that curl we're talking about and turn to the east of Florida. Best news of all, but as we go through the week, yeah, this is going to send a nasty rip current swells, seas, elevated tides. So Robert's going to be talking more about that coming up. And then there's that swing off to the north and northeast. As we look at the overall picture, there's our spaghetti models we've been showing. Good consensus. You want all the models to agree. We're seeing that right now. There's Bermuda, San Juan, even my UMET's on board along with the H-Wharf. We take a look at the wind field. Again, the wind's not the big thing I'm worried about with this system, even though, yeah, it's a powerful Category 3 and soon to be 4 again today. Still keeping the highest wind speeds and the best chance of tropical storm force winds just off to the east, okay, of the United States and to the west of St. George and Bermuda. We take a look at the forecast wind. If you do have friends in Bermuda. The latest models have been much more optimistic. We're keeping those wind speeds in Bermuda closer to 40 miles per hour less, maybe brief tropical storm force winds. The GFS model, a little more bullish, trying to take it closer to hurricane force winds as we head into the middle of the week. But again, for Bermuda, I think the news will be good for our friends there as the core of the system does continue to stay away from the island. We take a look at the big picture here, the flooding going on. We've been showing this morning here on 10 Tampa Bay News this morning. We've had numerous flash flood warnings in the islands. St. Thomas, I was zooming in on Robert earlier this morning. Now we've got, unfortunately, Puerto Rico and the southern coast getting in on some amazing rainfall rates. I was picking up 3-4 inches of rain per hour. So, yeah, front and center. Your big impacts here would be the flooding, the heavy rain for the islands with those bands just wrapping around the center there. And as we look at the big picture, speaking of that center, you can really make it out on radar here. You can see the big swirl just to the north here of the Dominican Republic here. And as it continues to move off to the west-northwest. Watches and warnings, again, just a little closer look, mainly for the Turks, Caicos, and the Bahamas right now, the southeast Bahamas and the watch. The big angry ball of convection and energy, we've been calling it, again, continues to head off to the west-northwest today. Notice the highest winds here staying just to the north of the islands, but there will be some tropical storm force gusts for areas to Turks and Caicos. The snug corner could see some 41-mile-per-hour gusts, and then off toward Port Nelson with 36-mile-per-hour gusts. But now we're going to transition more to the impacts here on the east coast of Florida. That's why we got our Robert Spetta, our meteorologist, in from Duval. And Robert, since yesterday, what I wanted to show you is we're starting to see more impacts. It looks like a little bit higher seas and surf that you and I were anticipating yesterday because this is such a much stronger storm, and if anything, it's expanding as I speak. And it looks like that surf there easily for the St. Augustine Pier up over 8 feet as we head into the middle of the week.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the big things. The surf increasing out there. I mean, 7 feet plus easy up and down the eastern seaboards from this storm. Hey, and one other thing I do want to note, and this is only just kind of responding to a lot of questions and comments I've gotten about that track. We are saying this is moving towards northwest. All guidances indicate that. But I do want to continue to stress that it does appear to be still moving west, but this turn is going to be towards the north and west here soon. For everybody watching this and you're going, what? And then you might be thinking, well, I saw yesterday it move towards the southwest. I got a fun word for you here, Mike. I know you know this one, but for everybody at home, it's called a terrestrial wobble. Yeah, there's a fun little meteorological word. And basically, the storm has been kind of wobbling back and forth. Think of if you have a washing machine and you don't load it right, and it starts to spin and it goes dum, 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 dum. That's kind of what happens when these storms get up to Cat 4, Cat 5 intensity. They start to do this little wobbling. But that's basically as this moves west. Now we're going to start to see that turn towards the north and west. So let's talk about, as it moves away here, as it skirts the coast of the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, it moves off towards the north. And this is the key thing. Look at this. So this is moving through here Monday into Tuesday, staying well towards the east of the state of Florida. Good news there, right? But what we're going to be seeing is look at the wind flow on the northwestern side of this, interacting with this high pressure ridge located over the southeastern United States. And then you have this long fetch area. Fetch is basically the meteorological word for the amount of time wind blows over water. Think of if you're standing on a lake or even a pond, watch the wave action and where the wind's coming from. If you're standing on the side where the wind is blowing from, there's not much waves. You're standing where it's blowing towards, there's some bigger waves. We're going to have this long fetch area pushing those bigger waves up along the east coast of Florida. And I do think we're going to be looking at those breakers 7 feet or higher at times. I mean, I know surfers, they're getting stoked about this, but this is some sketchy waves out there. I mean, there could be some even larger than 7 feet, up to 9 feet. Plus, it's a very powerful swell. And I know that's something you don't think about when you look at waves in the ocean, but the swell power is actually a measurable thing. And with that, that's going to increase the risk of rip currents out there as well. So it can't stress enough. And I know it's silly to say, but let's say it again. Stay out of the water. I'm going to put a 4-letter word in there. I'm not going to say it. Stay out of the water, please, people. It's going to be dangerous, life-threatening rip currents mixed in with this. Also, if you go outside in the early morning, look up at the moon. It is a kind of a waning crescent right now. We're nearing the new moon, so we have a spring tide. That means the tides are actually getting a little bit higher than your average tide. That combined with that onshore flow is going to be backing up the bays, the inlets. The St. Johns River for the east coast of Florida and Jacksonville area already is running a bit above average. So when you have those tides backed up, you already have water levels a little bit high, you could be looking at some tidal flooding. I don't expect, goodness gracious, we're not seeing Irma type tidal flooding out there, not even remotely, but some of those classic low-lying tidal plains that you see during the like king tide flooding, you probably are going to be seeing that, and some moderate beach erosion out there in our dunes, just because of the power and that swell. And as Mike just mentioned, that bigger wind field out there, that it's just going to be stretching, kind of pushing all this over that wider fetch area. So here's a look at that rip current through early next week. It's not just the east coast of Florida, it's up and down the eastern seaboard, all the way out towards the Outer Banks as well. And here's a look at those tides that I was talking about. Now, this is specifically for Jax Beach, so I'm just putting that there. This is right at the pier starting today. About 3:48 is your high tide Monday morning, but more so I think that 5:20 a.m. high tide and that 6 p.m. high tide on Tuesday evening, and then Wednesday morning is kind of the times you really want to watch this. Now, remember the St. Johns River, further inland is downtown Jacksonville. That high tide is probably going to be an hour to an hour and a half, a bit after that. But those are really the big issues we're watching here on on the east coast of Florida, and is why we do actually here at First Coast News in Jacksonville, we have a weather impact alert in place, not because of rain. And in fact, Mike, we don't really have rain in the forecast Tuesday and Wednesday. It is just going to be that stiff onshore breeze out there that's going to be creating that dangerous rip currents out here, Mike.
Yeah, hey, great points, Robert. And yeah, I saw the big three, big four. And, you know, you and I were hoping, you know, that it would rain a bit this week, especially Northeast Florida. The problem is when these systems miss you off to the east, they wrap all the moisture toward their center, and we've got subsidence. And we can go into some big vocabulary words, but what you need to know is it's going to be unusually quiet, sunny, and beautiful, and people want to go to the beach. They want to see the big surf, and a lot of folks are tempted to get in, but I like your advice. Please stay out of the water. Let me head over to the weather wall. Let's take a look at Duval, Nassau, back into St. Johns County. Now, it is going to be an active afternoon. This is not associated, okay? You always have to remind, it's not associated with Erin, okay? It's going to be heading away. It's making that turn. But there's going to be plenty of lightning in the area. We talk about lightning safety all the time. We already have some lightning near areas right off JTB toward Jax Beach, watching the lifeguard house there. And it may not be raining where you're at, but most folks are struck by lightning when it's dry outside. So we know we don't wait, we don't hesitate, because it will be too late if you hear thunder and you don't get to your safe spot. So this afternoon, look for increasing showers and storms across the First Coast. Right now we're seeing along A1A, then it's going to start to slowly move to the west along JTB, and then we're going to start to see areas toward I-95 light up, Highway 17 across the St. Johns River as we head through the afternoon. So that will be a big story. Could be some pretty good gully washers. Can't rule out some flood advisories like yesterday. And then notice as we head toward Tampa, we've got Crystal River, Tampa, and St. Pete. I just took a weather observation here. Man, it's hot. I mean, we put a weather impact alert here in effect in Tampa Bay, first for the heat. No, that's not enough. And then we have it for the heavy rain and possible flooding. So there is actually an excessive flood risk, excessive officially rainfall risk is what it's called. So you got the rainfall, excessive rainfall, and that's for all of us in Northeast Florida, all the way to Central Florida, even here on the west coast of Florida as well. So just keep in mind, if you're traveling on this Sunday, your safety comes first. We talked about the lightning, the downpours, there could be some flooding, and the problem is the atmosphere, not showing much movement in the mid and upper level. So these storms will just sit over your spot. So if you get under one of these thunderstorms, you could be in the rain for about 2-3 hours or more this afternoon, and that could put down, the 2-3 or more inches of rain. But for now, it's quiet in Tampa, St. Pete, but as we head toward 2 o'clock, we're watching Highway 19, the corridor just off the sand. As that sea breeze moves in, that will trigger some of our first isolated storms. And then once those pop, yeah, they're going to be very slow and slowly inch toward the inland areas, toward areas of Polk County, the fairgrounds where we've got Fit Fest, folks getting their steps in. We had that Prangley Runner Index of an 8 this morning, but I said get those steps in because it's going to fall to a 2 due to lightning and due to the heat out there. So as we look at our future cast from Jacksonville to Tampa, you can see Jacksonville, yeah, 12:30, looks like things are going to change in a hurry. You see that rainfall really chance going up to 60%. Tampa, we're still kind of quiet. I'm still thinking closer to 2, but notice right along the coast, watching it light up along the beaches and then slowly moving to the west across the St. Johns River. And then we'll watch the west coast sea breeze meet that east coast sea breeze this afternoon, and all of us getting in on some of that rain, not associated with Erin. And then as we head into Monday, yeah, more of a transition day. We'll start to see those dangerous rip currents that Robert was talking about. Maybe some thigh-high sets coming in the morning, but maybe head-high by the time we head to early evening, and that does include the Mayport Polls and up into areas of, gosh, I mean, we're talking all the way up into Jekyll Island, St. Simon's Island, watching those rip currents really start to fill in. But again, another round of rain Monday, but as we go through the week, yeah, these showers will become few and far between from Jacksonville to Tampa and really most of Florida, even watching Miami. So you can see those lower rain chances to 20%, 10% Jacksonville there by Monday evening and 40% for Tampa. But Robert, I wanted to show you this. So we've got a good handle on what's happening with Erin, watching the rip currents, keeping folks safe. So if you're just joining us, 11:15, what we've been doing the updates all weekend long. So the big updates, 11 a.m., of course, another one at 5 p.m., and we'll even do the intermediate one if you want at 2 p.m. But latest numbers, still a Cat 3, 125 mile per hour winds. But as we look at this recurve, still expect to happen, even if it takes that little wobble that you were talking about, Robert. I think we're looking good as we head through the week. But again, it's just that water. It's just stay away from the water. That's what's going to make it dangerous.
That's going to be the big thing. Hey, just real quick, I want to show you this on my end with the graphics, if we can. You were just talking about those showers offshore, and I wanted the confirmation, a little visual here. Just that is a look from our tower camera out towards Jax Beach. And yeah, that's a good old, you can kind of see the rain shaft off there in the distance, and this is what you're looking right at there on radar, just right over, just north of Ponte Vedra.
I love that shot,
that's
Robert.
that line of showers Mike was just talking about.
I love that shot, live shot. I love just keep those boxes coming. And then, yeah, let's zoom into Home Sweet Home. So you see that shot right there, and it does look like, again, for areas of northeast Florida, it still looks like, yeah, flooding could be a big risk as well, right?
Yeah, because the same deal. The atmospheric flow out there right now is very slow, and any showers we get, we've seen this in Brunswick yesterday, they're just kind of sitting in the exact same spot, and we've actually had flood warnings yesterday because of just the slow movement out there. But hey, Mike, I do want to address kind of an elephant in the room here.
Okay.
And that is the next storm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have it.
Let's
I have it all
talk about it.
I've got it ready. You ready to go?
Well,
I'm ready to go to the wall and set the table and see what you think, agree with, or maybe disagree with.
Oh, all right. I had some graphics ready to go too. We're both
take it
on
away.
top of this.
You take your graphics.
I think the big thing is that before we get into the long range, we have to remind everybody those long range models that you're seeing on social, we're all seeing it.
That's why we're showing it.
I could train a first grader to grab long range models and repost it. But it's all about understanding what you're looking at, and that's the most important thing. So I'm going to give it the mic here, and let's talk about what we're looking out there, that elephant in the room, and that next possible storm.
All right. I don't want you to buzz me. We'll get the buzzer out here, Robert, because it's good that you talked about, be careful what you watch on social media. Go to your trusted sources. Okay. All right, go to your trusted sources. So yes, we need to really be careful what we watch out there, because the African wave train, just put it in all perspective, is staying very busy in the tropics. We expected this, okay? So you take a look. We've got Erin 3. We take it one storm at a time. There's the recurve, okay? And then you've got the little system off the Carolinas, should be fine, okay, of low chance. But this is what we're talking about here this morning. What about this African wave? And we're here to dispel any rumors. Okay, so there it is. Right now, still well out there. With the Canary Islands, just coming off the coast of Africa. A lot of thunderstorm development along the intertropical convergence zone. The National Hurricane Center has an X, and then you've got the box here lit up in the central Atlantic. So we have all week to watch it, okay? And right now it's just given a 20% chance of development as it crosses into the Atlantic. So pretty interesting. You've got Erin here in this envelope, and then you've got the box hot on its heels telling us that that African wave train is alive and well. Things to watch for this week. And this is a little different setup. And I can say the models are not as bullish as developing this system as this Erin that we've seen, the historic Hurricane Erin, really the first Category 5, the earliest Category 5. Think about this, in the tropics, outside the Caribbean and the Gulf on record. Okay, this is fighting a little bit more hostility, so to speak. So you got the bright colors. I know this is a lot. You don't look at these maps every hour like Robert and I, but just focusing on all the wind. You know, these systems need light winds to really develop. Okay, and develop in a big way. So this week I see more wind shear as the system moves to the west. Okay, so here's Wednesday, 8 a.m. for instance, and it'll be out there. So one thing, there's a big X we can put on that. And then the Saharan dust. Remember we were talking about Erin outrunning the dust? All right, so we had some, that gave us high confidence that this thing would explode. This week, we've got our African wave moving more into a drier envelope in the atmosphere. Okay, so some more Saharan dust, so it's still out there, and that should help us a bit with this system as well. So we're not seeing the deep tropical moisture that tends to build these storms as well. So there's two strikes. But as we look at the Euro, okay, there's Erin, that's not the tropical or the African wave, but here it is down here. See that little circle? It's trying to organize as we head into Wednesday, 2 o'clock. And I was very careful, Robert, to put the date, August 20th, okay, there it is. We have a long way to go with this. And then as we keep this into motion,
nice.
There you go. We're still seeing it just kind of a weak low. I mean, you're not seeing anything big. You're not seeing a big web of isobars. Look at the difference between Erin and this African wave. And this is Friday, August 22nd. And then a lot of the models kind of just, it'll try. It looks like a little better organized. You're getting the wind trying to wrap around the center. Maybe way too early, okay, because this is a good week out south of Bermuda. Maybe watching it a little closer. And then the models just kind of have it come up a little bit farther to the north and northwest, and likely, and we'll see, but basically more than 7 days out, basically too early. Okay, that's the key with the Euro. So just keep in mind, no threat to land, way too early to call, intensity, even if it develops at this point. Then there's the American model. This is usually the bullish model of the two, and of course, probably be a little more interesting, right, for us. So here you go. You got the African wave. Here's Monday as we go through next week. This is actually August 27th, Wednesday. This is an envelope about 10 days out. So you know the rule of thumb I use, anything more than 7 days out. Yes, a lot of times it's fantasy land. So especially with the GFS. And you can see this is getting a stronger storm, possibly a named system in the Gulf and maybe the Caribbean here. So we'll keep an eye on this.
So
this
Mike,
is 10 days out
what
there,
I've been
right?
seeing
Robert,
on like socials is basically a clip of that right there.
Yes. This would be something to be careful of if you're on the internet. Don't lose sleep over it. We're here to dispel the rumor that right now we are not paying attention to that model. So again, 2025 hurricane names. We'll let Robert take it away with his synopsis. But at this point, you can see we've had Erin, the Category 5. The next named system could be Fernand, or we may wait a little longer. So for now, I'm still optimistic that even though it's a busier pattern, maybe not quite as big of a threat as we head into the next 7 to 10 days.
And I think that's one of the big things is that you just showed right there, the models are not nearly as bullish. I know the models aren't perfect, but the thing about Erin before it formed, even 10 days out, the GFS, the Euro, the Canadian, the JMA, they were all stacked on top of each other with a powerful hurricane. And there was definitely that eyebrow raise. This one, we're getting like one model, usually the GFS, that is aggressive, while the rest of them are kind of like, hey, okay, take a breather here, step back. This is still a long range. And here's the other thing.
Yes.
The path forecast for this, since Erin just kind of moved through these same atmospheric dynamics, it'll probably be moving in a very similar area with this area of low pressure. And another thing you don't quite often think about, Erin's a powerful storm, right? So what we're getting is a lot of upwelling. It goes out there, it stirs up the ocean. So if this did go in a very similar path, it actually would be moving over relatively cooler sea surface temperatures than Erin had because it stirred up the ocean there, and then you got that area just kind of following behind it. But beyond that, this is still vastly, vastly, vastly uncertain, and I think that's the key thing to take away from this. This is still a tropical wave. It is not as bullish as Erin was. And still, when we're looking at, right here, this is another look at that GFS model, the 21st into the 22nd. And let's look all the way out to the 25th, 26th. Yeah, that looks scary for Florida. And I know that anybody that looks at this, they're probably thinking, oh my, that looks a lot like Helene or Ian. And I get your fears for the West Coast when you see that. But this is not current. This would be the 28th. This is still very long range, and there's so much going on out there. I say this time and time again, and I like using, actually, I'm going to put this graphic up. Let me see if I can find it. This is my favorite graphic, Mike, for talking about the long range forecast. Do you ever play, you ever watch Price is Right? You got
Yes.
Plinko.
Yeah.
Or for me, pachinko, when I lived in Japan. This is a very classic game. You drop that disc, the further up you go, the more options you got.
Yeah. Yes.
That's it.
I love it.
So
we need some sound effects.
Okay, I got it. You're my sound effects right there. Boop, 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 boop. But that's what the models are, that initializing condition. It depends on where you drop it and all these variabilities. The further out you go, the less of a chance you have it to hit the right spot there, Mike.
Yeah, hey, that's a great graphic, the Plinko graphic. And yeah, big changes can happen in a way out, especially more than 7 days. So as we get you ready for the rest of the day, we only have a couple minutes here. If you're just joining us, we're live here at 11:26. We'll go for about another minute. We got the update from the Hurricane Center, and we've got you covered from coast to coast, literally, from Duval to Pinellas, and watching both sides of the coast very carefully as we're getting closer to the peak of the hurricane season. I've got meteorologist Robert Speta here with his wonderful synopsis here, and I'm watching this with him. We've got Hurricane Erin officially at 11 a.m. with 125-mile-per-hour winds, moving west-northwest at 13, that pressure at 946. And as you look at the overall picture, we're watching the heavy rain for the islands, the flash flooding we showed you in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So if you have family and friends down there, we'll continue to watch that carefully. But yeah, really it's the flash flooding from the Turks and Caicos to Puerto Rico we're watching. And then watch that, yes, as we go through this week, a major hurricane as it starts to steer to the north and to the northeast and turn away from the United States. But as we've been talking, the big thing we're watching for Florida would be those rip currents. And the first to see them, of course, our friends on the first coast. And we're going to start to see those rip currents come up in a big way. And you may even, Robert, see some of those long swells come in. Some of those swells start to come in well ahead of the actual swell as we head through this afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on that. And also the rain. So we're talking about heavy rain, possible spots with some flooding with the very slow movements of storms, and that would include areas of Jacksonville, St. Augustine, all the way back here into Tampa. So we appreciate you joining us, and Robert and I, we're ready to go. So we'll do another update, at least with the intermediate advisory at 2 p.m., and we'll talk more about our active radars and the latest in the tropics. We appreciate you joining us.
I'll see you then.